Good evening, everybody. This week is Parshas Mishpatim. In Perek Chavdalet Pasuk Zayin, we find the Pasuk Vayikach Sefer Habris, Vayikra ba'oznei ha'am, Vayomru kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh v'nishma. Towards the end of the Parsha, we're told that Moshe Rabbeinu read this Sefer Habris to Am Yisrael, and after reading this to Am Yisrael, we responded unanimously and declared na'aseh v'nishma. So the question is, what is this Sefer Habris? What is written in it? According to the Ramban, this story about the Sefer Habris and Na'aseh v'nishma took place in chronological order after Parshas Yisro and after Moshe Rabbeinu had taught the Mishpatim written in Parshas Mishpatim to Am Yisrael. This Sefer Habris had everything that had been taught until now written down in it, including all the Mishpatim in Parshas Mishpatim. We find reference to the Sefer Habris and its contents referred to by Yirmiyahu Hanavi in the Haftarah of the Parsha. Kayamar Hashem Elokei Yisrael, Anochi karati vris es avaseichem b'yom ha'itzi ha'isa me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeis avadim le'mor. Mikei sheva shanim teshalchu ish es achiv ha'ivri asher yimacher l'cha v'abdecha sheish shanim v'shilachtai chafshi me'imach. This is the same mitzvah that we find in the beginning of the Parsha. The mitzvah of working for 6 years and sending out in the 7th year. What is so central and crucial in Parshas Mishpatim to make its content singled out of all the Tariag mitzvahs to have been written in this special Sefer Habris that was handed to Am Yisrael now before anything else was actually written down? Why are the mitzvahs pertaining to the treatment of the Eved Ivri highlighted in such a position of prominence? Hilchos Eved Ivri, I remind ourselves, are all about maintaining the rights and respect and dignity of the person, the Eved Ivri who has fallen to the lowest status because he had stolen, he couldn't repay, and he sold himself for slavery. The Ramban, in the beginning of Parshas Truma, explains the contents of this Sefer Habris and says, the Tziva Oisam al Yidei Moshe Tzas Mitzvahs Shehem Kamoi Avos LeMitzvahseha Shel Torah Kasher Hinhigu Rabbeinu Im Hagerim Shabaim Lehisyahed. So at the time of Matan Torah, says the Ramban, Am Yisrael were like a ger coming to convert, and so we were given certain mitzvahs. And here I put in bold, ones that are central and foundations to all the mitzvahs of the Torah. So Parshas Mishpatim opens with the treatment of the slaves. The Megaleh Amukos, in accordance with the Medrash, teaches that Galus Mitzrayim was a direct result of Mechiras Yosef into slavery. This unspeakable act of selling our brother brought about Midah Keneged Midah, Shibud Mitzrayim. Towards the end of the Parsha, we find the very stern warning against verbally abusing the weak and the vulnerable, and again we find this directly tied to Galus Mitzrayim, V'ger lo yisayna v'lo ysilchatzenu ki gerim hayisem be'eretz Mitzrayim. And a few psukim later, Kol almana v'yasem lo yisa'anun v'ger lo ysilchatz v'atem yedatem es nefesh hager ki gerim hayisem be'eretz Mitzrayim. The ger yasayim va'almana, the convert, the orphan and the widow, they're all examples of vulnerable, weak, disadvantaged, those that don't fit into the quote-unquote normal flow of society. And this mitzvah extends to include anyone else who falls into this category in any kind of context. So here's an incident with my father-in-law, Zatzal, Rav Aaron Soloveichik, that involved an older Talmud, an older Bachur. He wasn't married. He was also a Yasom. His parents had passed away. People didn't appreciate him. They found him annoying due to issues that involved expressions of kanoas on his part. They requested from Rav Aaron that he not be allowed into the shir. Rav Aaron's reaction was quick and clear-cut. Chas v'shalom, he said. He couldn't do that. It's absolutely usur. It's against the Torah. And when they asked him what part of the Torah, his answer, it goes against Kol HaTorah Kula me Aleph v'ad Taf. And by the way, the Rambam's definition of an orphan is remains an orphan as long as he has not established his own home. He's not self-sufficient and independent. The Pele Yoetz tells us, Al mi shehu ger ba'aretz nachriya b'li rea va'ach ve'en lo makir v'ruach nemucha b'li bar nishbar v'nidke ro'i l'rachem alav u'lekarvo v'liosimo ohe v'rea u'la'azro u'latamcho b'chal haba b'yado u'bazeh mekayem mitzvah rabazu. It's a very big mitzvah, he says, to befriend, to give support, to assist in any way possible, to make him feel at home, the ger, appreciated and respected, and certainly not to shame, not to humiliate, not to embarrass or accentuate and highlight his outsiderness. Maybe he doesn't understand the nuances. Maybe he's not so adept at the language. The Torah discourages any behavior or conversation that will underscore and emphasize our superiority over others and saying something that might humiliate them. Chazal say, not even to mention words that can trigger feelings of shame or trauma. B'lashon Chazal, diskifle zikifa b'diyatke loinemale lechavere zikif binita. Meaning, for example, if someone, Rahman al-Litzlan, had in their family history someone that was hung, a person should be careful when talking to that person not to mention anything, any kind of forms of the word hang, because it might arouse in them shame and trauma. The Torah encourages super sensitivity and respect for others. Take a minute, a few seconds even, to think of who you're talking to. Reflect on their situation before opening your mouth. For example, I wasn't aware. Somebody pointed it out to me. Many older singles do not like being told the bracha by weddings, Zimrit Hashem Bayu. Take a few seconds, like I said. Let's think about them, the people that we're going to talk to, their jobs, their projects that they're involved in, their travels or whatever. Validate them as a person with respect rather than making them feel as a nebuch, because no one enjoys being different and conspicuous. The Chida writes on the words, Ger yezar acha be'eretz loy lahem. When Hashem told Avraham Avinu, Am Yisrael will be in a land that's not theirs. So the Chida says we can also say Eretz loy lahem refers to the Mitzrim. Shameshabdim layu ba'artzam. V'chein ha-Mitzrim hayu goylim. They themselves were in exile. Why? Ki Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef was the one that suffered the abuse. He knew what it was like to be a ger, be'eretz loy loy, to be a complete stranger in a foreign land. So he understood the pain. He didn't want his brothers to go through that. What did he do? Before Bnei Israel came to Mitzrayim, he took the Mitzrim and moved them all around from city to city, so nobody was in their ancestral house. Nobody was landed gentry. Kadesha lo yikru le'echav goylim. So his brothers wouldn't stand out as outsiders, and they wouldn't be called goylim, exiled. And the Shla tells us, Kishevet Levi, meaning that we're supposed to feel the sufferings of others and relate to it and try and alleviate it. And even just to feel it. Shevet Levi, the Shla says, Lo hayu b'galus. Levi, the father Levi, he was... Yeah. So Shevet Levi, he was a Navi. He knew that his Shevet, his children, would not be enslaved because they never participated in Paro's games and therefore they were never enslaved. But he knew, V'rotza lehishtatef b'tzoras hatzibur me'asa kara shemos levanav al shem hagalos. All the names of his children were al shem hagalos. They're names of misery and hardship. Dahainu, Shem Gershon, there's Gershon, Kahasu, Merari, Gershon, Ki Gerim Hem Ba'aretz Lo Lahem. Kahas, Al Shem Shinehem Kehais. Their teeth were blackened by the bondage. Shem Merari Al Shem Vayamaru Es Chayehem. They embittered their lives. So how do we implement feeling the suffering of others? So the Gan Na'ol, it's pretty easy, as a matter of fact. The Gan Na'ol, the Sefer of Rabbi Abulafia, ביותר צריך להסבונן שאנחנו כולנו גרים ותושבים בארץ. We feel confident about who we are and what we have and where we are, but nothing is permanent, not our status, not our health, not our belongings. And therefore, it's very easy, if we think of it in that way, to relate to others as equals, because at the end of the day, we are all talui barachmei shamayim. Specifically, verbal abuse is an especially grave prohibition. Gadol oinas devarim me'oinas mamayin. When you steal somebody's money, you can pretty easily return the money. When you hurt their feelings, how can the damage be quantified and rectified? Insulting, shaming, belittling, and embarrassing is a very serious matter. Here's another story. We know someone who has a certain physical disability. We'll call him Yaakov. He was on a mission. He was determined to call to Beis Din another person, let's call him Yitzchak, and sue this other person, Yitzchak, for 50,000 shekels. Why? He said he caused him excruciating back pains. So Yitzchak, I guess he wanted to show friendship. Whenever he would see Yaakov, he would slap him on the back. And Yaakov complained that this caused him great back pain. He was determined to get 50,000 shekels compensation, no less. He went around to many Rabbanim, none of them related. He didn't come forward his frustration. He was really upset about this. He came to my husband, Rav Yosef. My husband immediately understood. He got it. The issue wasn't the pain and not the money. This boy felt tremendous humiliation and condescension. He was very hurt. So my husband gave him very sagely genius advice. He told him that the next time Yitzchak or anyone else comes around and slaps him on the back, well, what should he do? He should slap them right back, good and hard. And that's what he did. And guess what? It worked out. Miraculously, the back pains disappeared. And he felt so good. He felt so good about himself, he completely forgot about his back pains and his tviyah lebeis din. Causing emotional pain is a very serious matter. Kol hasharim nin'alu chutz misharei ainah. Perush Rashi, hatzoyek al ainahs devarim ein hashar nina lefanav. Someone who cries out in emotional pain, his cries go straight up to Shamayim. How do we know that? Rav Chisda, the Nesivos Olam says this. Rav Chisda, Kol hasharim ninalu chutz misharei ainah, shenemar Hashem nitzav alav al chaymas anach uviyadai anach v'yesh lecha lahavin davar zeh v'heim dvarim amukim. The Nesivos Olam says this is very deep idea. V'inyan ainah yesh lecha ladas ki ha'akasav omer v'ger lo'isaynu v'lo'isel chatzenu ki atem yedatem et nefesh hager Harei ki tala oina banefesh shehi mikabelas oina. It's the soul of the person, the very soul, that is afflicted by the oina. V'chol busha, and any kind of embarrassment and shame and humiliation, hi lanefesh. It's the soul that is injured. Mipnei zeh ki oina hi lanefesh. Hanefesh hi biyadai shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do we know that? Dichsiv ki biyadcha nefesh kol chai. So we said it's a very deep inyan. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachal himself is mitapel ba'inyanim ha'elu. Sefer HaYetzirah of Rav Abulafia, ki hamabin pnei chaveroi berabim hu k'shoifech damim v'yorei legehenim ve'enoi oile. Al ken yesh lo la'adam li'zaher li'srachik miledaber b'mumei b'nei adam u'bignusam. Ki diburei shel adam meid alav v'al hadvarim hane'elamim bai. Chazal, HaChachamim, their understanding of human nature goes so deep. What do they say? The diburei shel adam meid alav. You can hear from the words of a person who he is and the secrets that are inside of him. Sheha-adam ha-kasher medaber b'shivchei b'nei adam ve'enoi roitze l'saper b'gnusam. Aval ha-pasol kol ta'avasai hu l'daber b'mumei b'nei adam ki ba'avur shehu pasol rotza lifsol acherim. So the person that is kosher, a kosher person, he's clean. He enjoys praising other people. He gets no enjoyment speaking in the gnus of another person, shaming another person. But a person who is not so kosher, and he's the one that speaks with negativity. The negativity of a person, when he speaks negatively, with sarcasm, with snide remarks, it's an indication that something's going on inside, meaning he's revealing negativity in himself. It could be bad character traits, it could be anger, it could be jealousy, insecurity, frustrations. In the language of Chazal, kol ha-poisel b'mumoy poisel. So whenever we feel an urge to go and make snide remarks about others, to criticize others, first we got to check our own situation inside and fix it first. To do our house clean, our inner house cleaning. That's the first thing before we can move on to anything else. Going back to Sefer Habris that we were given as a preview to the entire Torah, and this is what we find highlighted, the mitzvah and warning not to take advantage, not to humiliate, and not to abuse those who are vulnerable, which was a direct cause of Galus Mitzrayim, selling Yosef, and the neglect of this mitzvah of Shichru HaAvadim, of the proper treatment of the Eved Ivri, was a cause of Galus Bavel. You can check it out in the Haftarah, the words of Yirmiyahu Hanavi. So if Galus Mitzrayim came out because of abuse, the sale of Yosef as a slave, this experience in Mitzrayim, in modern terminology, we can call it, in Hebrew it's called a chavaya mitakenet, a healing experience. It served to forever imprint upon our souls the sensitivity that is needed towards the individual, his feelings, his needs, and his rights. It is so central to our essence that in the first and main one of the Aseret Hadibros, it stated, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. It doesn't say Asher Barasi Es Ha'olam. It says Asher Ha'itzeisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim Mi-Beis Avadim. House of slavery, abuse, humiliation, degradation. It's thoroughly familiar to us. And slavery is the antithesis of Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Every person is created in the image of God. The recognition of this and the resulting sensitivity and behavior is the foundation of the whole Torah. It was clearly written down in the preview that we received immediately after Matan Torah, the Sefer Habris, in the Lashon of Ramban, Shehem Kamo Avos Lemitzvoseha Shel Torah, the foundation of Kol HaTorah Kula.